My name is Mark, and this is Why I Hate the World. What's happening? Looks like we got one viewer. Thank you, whoever you are, for joining. And let's get right into it. So, sorry I started a little late, just making sure all my stuff is looking good. And I'm trying to actually make my stream look better, as far as like the resolution and stuff like that, making sure my connection is good and that kind of thing, and you can hear me and all that. So if there is any weird problems with the audio or stuff like that, please let me know. Anyway, hello, and let's get started. All right, so as always, tons and tons of things to talk about in the world, but this particular um, stream, I want to talk mainly about the election. I mainly want to talk about just election tomfoolery and shenanigans and stuff in general, but kind of focus on, specifically what the Trump campaign is doing to, finagle their way back into office, basically. How are they cheating? Because here's the thing, right? Republicans cheat in every election ever. Okay, since I can remember, since I've been politically active, Republicans have always cheated. And it always seems to be going one way. Now I know that you're going to hear a lot from people out there, you know, um, you're going to be hearing, okay, well, all politicians cheat and blah blah blah, and I'm sure you're going to find plenty of examples of dirty politicians everywhere across the political aisle pulling lots of less than savory or ethical or legal things. But it seems like the Republicans have the whole cheating to get elected thing down to a fucking science. Right? And Donald Trump is no exception. So we're going to see a lot of that, especially now that the election is something like 92 days out. If as of this broadcast, right? As of this stream, is it 92 days out? It might even be less than that. It might even be closer to 90. So it's getting up there, man. And this election season is a lot different than usual, because usually at this time of at this time there would be debates going on. There'd be rallies. The candidates would be going out there, canvassing doors, talking to people, trying to get, making phone calls, shit like that, right? They'd be like having talks and stuff, and going on TV shows and that kind of thing. Trump would be having like campaign rallies, and none of that's happening. I do know that they're going around knocking on doors, stuff like that. As a matter of fact, the Trump campaign is way far ahead as far as that type of canvassing is going. Apparently, last week they knocked on over 1 million doors, right, in various battleground states, and the Democrats haven't really done shit as far as that goes. So yeah, Joe Biden, get the fuck on that, please. What are you doing, man? Fucking, that's one thing that I do want to mention, right? People are acting, especially on the people on the Democratic side, are acting like they have this in the bag. They're acting like, they're seeing the polls, and if you look at the polls, like, Donald Trump has not been ahead of Joe Biden at all, ever. Like, I think the last one is like February. In fact, you know what? Let's just Google that real fast. Let's just do Trump versus Biden, right? And then let's just take a look at this. Okay. Because here we go. Let's go down to, let's see, Real Clear Politics, right? And let me turn on my left monitor. And here we go. Real Clear Politics, Biden versus Trump. Right, now let's look at all. And if you look at this, you see this solid blue column all the way down. All the way down. Can do blue, blue, blue. Oh wait, there goes a red one. When was that? Oh, that was February of this year, right? So you have to go back way far, far, far to even get one where Trump is ahead. But if you look at these numbers down here, down in like June and July, Biden 14, Biden 9 points, Biden, 8 points, Biden 12 points. Get a little bit closer to today, they're still pretty high. 10, 6, 4, 7, 4. The last one from CNN was 4. It's starting to tighten up just a little bit, and it's like, well, I mean, I guess in one sense, that's kind of what happens when the election is coming up, right? Um, Supporters, candidates, start paying attention. People who might not have answered polls, before, might be actually answering polls now. People might actually start thinking about who they're going to vote for, that kind of thing. And that is kind of the reason why polls tend to tighten up a little bit when you get closer to the election, right? And, truth be told, looking at that, Biden is still way far ahead, even after all those averages. Even like if you take the Rasmussen polls, which are usually like very, very Trump, biased towards not just Trump, but towards conservatives and Republicans in general. Even if you take all of that, it still shows Biden ahead by 7 points, which is, decent, right? It's not as much as it used to be, right? I don't understand how it can only be 7. I mean, I don't understand why he's not ahead by 35 points at this point, but just looking at all the fucking shenanigans. But that just kind of goes to show you that, people don't pay attention to politics the way that I do, and maybe you, if you're watching this, if you're watching this, you're probably a little more well informed than the average person. You probably take a little bit more of an interest in politics than the average person does, right? So you might actually follow the news and blah, 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 blah. Most people don't. See, that's something we got to remember. Most people don't really follow the news at all, especially when it comes to whatever politician they're going to vote for. Most people don't really care. They got shit to do. They have concerns that, problems and shit that they have to work on, and they're working fucking at their jobs and shit, and they have to put food on the table, and they got to pay bills, and they got to pick up the kids and all that other crap, and they don't have time to worry about what stupid fucking thing Trump said this week, or whatever policy that Joe Biden supported back in the fucking 80s or some shit like that that makes him fucking racist or whatever. They don't have time for any of that shit right now. So when they go to vote, if they do at all, because you also have to remember that something like 55% of adults in the United States don't vote. Eligible voters don't vote, right? So you have to remember it's rare to even vote anyway. So if somebody does, chances are it's like they're not paying attention to that shit. They're choosing their their person that they support for other reasons, whatever those reasons may be, right? It's a very, very small number of people who actually look at the record of a politician and judges them based on what they voted on and what they stand for and whatever gaffes. Somebody might see a gaffe and they go, okay, I'm not voting for that moron. He said XYZ, he's an idiot. And that's all it takes, If you look back at 2016, Hillary Clinton had a lot of support, and then when fucking that FBI guy came out, what was it? I can't remember the details exactly, but what it was is there was a laptop that got found that had some of the emails that they were looking for, and it wasn't Mueller. It was the other FBI dude. I can't remember his fucking name. Like, had a news conference about it, and that basically if you look after that, that kind of spelled doom for her, right? I can't remember the guy's name. What the fuck was his name? He was the FBI guy that was trying to blend into the background when Trump was talking to him. Anyway, so it's like it could be very, very random and strange reasons why somebody doesn't want to vote for somebody. And there can be other reasons too. There can be racist reasons or sexist reasons or, whatever. Or he just doesn't like the way that the dude sounds on TV. People are very superficial. Someone won't vote for somebody because they think they're ugly. That's another thing too. So it's like not all of the Trump supporters think that, are supporting him because he's like gonna fucking, um, kick out all the Muslims and turn America into a white homeland. Right? Some people do. Some people actually do support him because of his fascist fucking leanings, and they like the idea that he's sending out federal officers to go brutalize protesters, and they like that he's blatantly fucking biased against blue states, and that he doesn't give them like sufficient help when disasters strike and stuff like that. Anybody remember that? Anybody remember in 2018 when there were like fucking wildfires and shit in California, and Trump just basically told California to go piss up a rope? Didn't do shit, didn't do anything to fucking help California. Remember that? I fucking remember that. Because those things, I was like a victim of those fucking wildfires. So anyway, right. Anybody remember when, when hurricane, the hurricane came and destroyed fucking Puerto Rico, and Trump didn't do shit to fucking help him? Like, but he sent help to fucking Texas and Florida, but he didn't do anything to help fucking Puerto Rico. Those are American citizens too. I mean, people are still dealing with the consequences of that fucking hurricane that just completely decimated that country. And it's like a travesty, man. And it just kind of goes to show, it's like, we've never had a president that was just so blatantly fucking, showed such blatant favoritism towards people that would help him politically as we do now. You know what I mean? Like, even Bush didn't do that shit. Like, even Bush, if there was like a disaster in a state that like didn't vote for him, he would send the appropriate governmental response that was expected of him to do. I mean, you might do it in a shitty way. I mean, if you remember Hurricane Katrina, that doesn't mean that the guy was competent or even a good person, but it did mean that he wasn't like showing blatant fucking favoritism to any particular state because the people in that state voted for him, like this asshole is. Right? Can you believe that shit? Anyway, how do we get on this? Yeah, so we're talking about the election, and the reason why people vote for, why do they choose their candidates? It could be for lots of different reasons. They think the guy's likable. That was something that Bush had, people liked George W. Bush, even though the guy was a fucking war criminal and he couldn't like string two fucking words together correctly to create a coherent sentence. I mean, if you remember the term Bushisms, that was kind of like coined for George W. Bush, you know what I mean? And now every president has an ism, there's Obama isms and Trump isms, but before that there weren't any Clinton isms, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was like that entire fucking meme of the president saying stupid shit and like somebody writing a funny book about it so we can all laugh about it started with George W. Bush, because the guy was a moron. Right? I mean, he was way over his head and didn't know what the fuck he was doing, and the world was much better off when he left. The world was much worse off that he was elected. Yeah, right. And it's just sort of like kind of goes to show you what happens when the guy who gets the least amount of votes becomes president. And apparently once wasn't enough with that. We had to learn that lesson again. Anyway, so why am I talking about all this, right? Because it looks like, alright, so every election that comes up, there's always people on one side of the aisle or another who likes to throw around the idea that the other side is going to do nefarious things in order to sway the election in their favor, And as I was saying before, Republicans are really good at this. This is something that the Republican Party, they're experts in rat fuckery, is what you call it. Right. Throwing people off of voter rolls is one method. Gerrymandering is another method. That's probably the most effective method of suppressing votes. Right. So what is gerrymandering? Okay, if for the people out there at home, if you don't know what that is. Gerrymandering is when you draw a district so that it includes or excludes people of a certain political party, right? So, what do I mean by that? So let's look up, Gerrymandering. Just to give you an example, right? Because it's much easier to just display it rather than like trying to understand. Okay, so here we go. Here is a very good example of what a gerrymandered district looks like. Okay, let me turn on my left monitor. All right, so this is Ohio. These are districts in Ohio, and they're gerrymandered. So if you were going to cut up your state into districts, right, how would you draw the lines? Would you draw them in straight lines? You know, I mean, that seems the most logical way, right? Draw them in straight lines. Like, this is what the state of Ohio looks like. All right, let's just kind of go here. Here's, see, right here, that's the state map of Ohio. Looks like this. It has this sort of wedge shape, right? But this is the districts in Ohio, right? So you can see that they're not drawn in straight line. You would think that you would just go divide it up evenly, right? But that's not exactly how it works. Okay, look at this. Look at district number 13 here. See all these weird little lines? Okay, this kind of looks like it's alright, but whoa, what's up with that? Why is this all funky and weird and all that shit? Look at district number 4. Kind of goes around, and then it has this sort of weird, kind of snaky, sort of cobra-like, you know, sort of shape, like, or this one, number 6. Why is it all funky and weird and way up here like this, and why does it expand out? And because, see, what is a district? A district is an area that someone is, you know, that your elected official is supposed to represent. So why is District 6 have all of these people up here and then snake all the way down to people way down in the south? And then why does number 4 go around in a weird-ass circle like that? Why is it all fucked up? Why isn't it even? You know, why isn't it divided up logically and instead divided up as like this weird-ass fucking puzzle, right? Well, what that does, when you do that, it allows you to group all of the people together in a certain political party that you know they're going to vote in a certain way. So what ends up happening is that you group all of the Republicans into one group, and you group all the Democrats into another group, and then what happens is that this district ends up being a dominant Republican district or a dominant Democrat district. So when you run your person in that district, it's a guarantee that whoever has the dominant numbers in that district wins. So you don't have to compete for that district. So that's what ends up happening when you gerrymander shit like that. And that is part of the reason why in the last 7 elections, I believe, there have been more Democrats voted for Democratic representatives, yet, you know, the Republicans seem to like hold the majority of state houses. They hold the majority of governorships, right? They used to have the majority in the House, you know, they don't anymore. They have the majority of the Senate. So that's why, you know, even though far more actual, like, from a raw numbers perspective, more Democrats actually vote, and in the last like 6 out of the last 7 elections, more Democrats voted for Democrats than Republicans voted for Republicans, yet Republicans have all the power. Why? Because of gerrymandering. That's the number one reason. Okay, so that's one way that they're really good at, you know, that's one form of basically election rigging, right? And the thing about gerrymandering is that it's completely 100% legal. It keeps getting withheld. You know, it goes up to the Supreme Court, it gets withheld, right? Somebody tries to challenge it saying, hey, this is like, you know, because apparently the courts think it's just fine and fucking dandy for whatever political party is in power to draw the districts. You know, that's this schemes that, you know, and here's the thing, they keep bringing it back up and it keeps getting withheld, you know. And then even like in some states, you know, on the rare occasion that it, because it's supposed to be illegal, gerrymandering is supposed to be illegal, right? But in practice it's not, you know. And in the very, very rare occasions where they can prove to a court of law that, okay, this is done in such a way to disenfranchise voters, and they go, okay, you have to redraw the districts. Even then, it doesn't actually solve it. So it's a problem that, because it's not just, Republicans that benefit from it. There are states that are gerrymandered to favor Democrats as well. So you got to remember, it's not just one political party that's the cause of all of our problems, right? Because that's not true. It's that would be disingenuous to say. Now you can't. What I am saying is that problems such as these are far more prevalent from the conservative side, far more blatant, right? And they take advantage of shit like this way more than the Democrats and liberals and shit do, right? I think that's demonstrably true, but it's not fair to say they're the only people that do it. Both sides actually do it, just one side does it way more and gets away with it way more often, right? Another method of rat fuckery is purging voter rolls, vote suppression. Vote suppression, right? So what is that? Well, this is something that you see in pretty much every election as well. And what happens is that, and this seems to be something that happens mainly in red states, right? Georgia, in this last election, in the midterms, the 2018 midterms, right? The Georgia, the state controller in Georgia went through and kicked off something like 50,000 voters from the voter rolls, right? Voting suppression. So basically, you're registered to vote. You show up to vote, your name's not on the voter roll, you had no idea, you can't vote, right? And the criteria they would do this last time around was something like, okay, well, if there are two names that are similar, that of a person, if there's a guy named George Smith and then another guy named George Smith registered somewhere else in the state, then both of those guys would get kicked off, because obviously they're the same person. Oh no, it's not like there could be two guys named George Smith, right? Or if somebody signed their name and let's say that their signature changed in the time that they registered to vote, then they would kick them off. They would compare signatures between people and say, okay, well, this guy dotted his I on his name and this guy didn't. And even though it's obviously the same signature, they would still kick him out. Do you sign your name the exact same way every single time that you sign it? I probably don't. It probably looks close, right? I don't even think I have a fucking, set signature. You know how sometimes some people will sit down and they'll just practice their signature over and over and over 50 times until they could just do it without looking. I never did that. I never really thought that mattered. I always thought who gave a shit? I'll just fucking print my name. That was I remember my little sister doing that when we were in junior high school. She would sit there and practice her signature over and over. And now she signs her name and it's this big flourish and it looks all professional and awesome and shit. And when I do it, it's derp, Mark, right? So, because I never cared, because I never thought that was a big fucking deal. So my signature usually doesn't really look the same any given time from one, try to another, right? Well, if I lived in Georgia, I'd probably get kicked off of the voter rolls for that, right? Well, that's kind of fucking. So that's another method, Another method actually is voter ID laws. That is a method of voter suppression, right? And now the conservatives and the Republicans are going to say no. Voter ID laws really in real life are there to prevent voter fraud, but in real life they're not, because there is no law that says, in the Constitution, right, that you need to have ID, okay? And you don't. In every state, there's no law in every state that says you have to have an ID. You don't. You don't have to have a state ID, right? There is no, requirement that you have to walk around with identification anywhere in the country, right? So you're walking down the street, cop says, let me see your ID. You say, hey, I don't have it. I don't have my wallet. You're not, and then if the guy gives you a ticket for that, that's bullshit. You're not allowed, he's not allowed to give you a ticket for not having a wallet, right? Because, there's no law that says, oh, you have to have identification on you at all times. Now, you do if you're driving, you have to have a driver's license. you know, but that's not just like you walking down the street minding your own business, right? So what does voter ID do? Well, there are people that don't have driver's license and they don't have IDs and they live like that. You know, maybe they choose not to drive. You know, maybe they live with other people and they don't have to like write checks and they don't have to do things that require not having IDs, right? And it most often affects people who are very young, you know, people who are in just like, you know, 18, 19, 20, who maybe live with their parents or something like that and are voting for the first or second time. And it also affects people who are very old. You know, basically people who don't drive are the ones who get disenfranchised by voter ID laws, right? Well, that also affects very poor people. You know, people who don't drive, people who take buses everywhere, right? And you know, never really can't afford to have a car or find that they can live better without a car. They take public transportation, something like that. Or maybe they don't work. Maybe they're stay-at-home parents, and you know their spouse works, something like that, right? This disenfranchises them as well, you know. So they can't go vote now because they don't have an ID. So what happens? They try shit like this, you know, in places like Georgia and Tennessee. And you know, it's funny how all of this stuff happens down in the South. You know, is where all this like rat fuckery is like so fucking prevalent. Florida, you know, what happens? You know, Florida, Tennessee, fucking Louisiana and shit. And what they do is they go, okay, you have to have this ID, and in order to vote, you have to have an ID card, and you can get one free from the state. So then what do they do? They go into all of the areas where poor people live, where people of color live, or black people live, and they shut down all the offices where you can get ID, right? And this is no fucking joke. So then people in fucking Alabama and shit have to go 50 miles to the nearest fucking DMV office or whatever they call it down there in order to get an ID card, right? Because they shut them all down in in the areas where all the fucking minorities live, right? Because that's the plan, you know, because minorities most often vote Democrat, right? So that's why you see shit like this happening. You never see voter ID laws in places like California, you know, where Democrats are at, you know. You know why? Because there's big cities in those states, right? Where lots of minorities live, you know. And it's just like, so that's basically, you know, so you'll hear people who are Republicans, specifically conservatives, Republicans, they'll defend voter ID laws until their dying day, trying to tell you that it's like, you know, it's to prevent voter fraud, and it's complete and total fucking bullshit. You know, there was something like 6 cases of voter fraud in the last fucking 20 years. You know, it's not a problem. Voter fraud is not a problem. You know, something like that, like less than like, it was like 6 cases or maybe 13 cases. It was such a small number of cases of actual voter fraud that something like that a voter ID would prevent, that it's just like, it's inconceivably small, you know. And the real problem is vote suppression. You know, this is the real fucking problem. Another way they'll do it is by shutting down polls in areas where minorities live. This is something that you see all over the place, constantly in the South. You know, Georgia. You know, constantly. Like, in fact, there was an election recently in Georgia where they decided to go ahead with the election, and people were waiting in line for 8 hours to go fucking vote, right? Because there were no polls open because of COVID-19. Now, can you imagine that shit? You know, you go to vote 8 fucking hours, and, you know, where the rich people live, the rich people aren't waiting 8 fucking hours to go vote. No, they're not. Okay, don't let anybody tell you, you know, whenever you hear people trying to defend shit like this, you know, it's just a coincidence, I guess, that these types of vote suppression shenanigans only ever occur where poor people and minorities live. They never occur like where the rich people live, right? It's complete bullshit. So, you know, but the people will fucking like defend this shit till their dying day because they're so brainwashed into thinking that there's this huge like problem of fucking, you know, conspiracy theories and shit of like how Democrats are busing in illegal aliens to go vote and all this other fucking baloney. And you hear bullshit like this all the time coming out of the right, and it's just, I don't know. I don't know. It's ridiculous. Anyway, um, so these are all things that, the Republicans they're traditionally really good at stuff like this. And and there's other types of weird sort of rat fuckery that usually happens. Things like, they'll go out, they'll pass out a bunch of flyers the day before the election, and on the flyers it'll say stuff like, the date of the election got changed, and they'll pass them out in areas where Democrats live. You know, one that I saw here in California was actually somebody did that. They passed out a flyer that had the date of the election. One side was in English and the other side was in Spanish. And on the Spanish side, it had the wrong date on it. Right? Just blatant shit like that. Another one was people in California. This was like maybe about 12 years ago. There was a group of people in California that got caught changing people's party affiliation when they register them to vote. So a bunch of Republicans went out and they were like pollsters, and they were basically volunteers who were registering people to vote. And when people would register with them and they'd register Democrat, the guys would change it to Republican, right? And so what did that actually do? Right. Well, what that happened is that so then somebody would be registered a Republican and they couldn't vote in the Democratic primary, right? Now, the motive behind that was most likely monetary, because these people were probably getting paid depending on how many Republican voter registrations they brought in. So that I don't think that particular case was because of some kind of rat fuckery, but still, the fucking result is pretty much the same. You end up suppressing the vote, And if you think about, well, why would you want to do that? Well, the less people that voted, from a certain area, like you could say, okay, well, people in this area support this candidate. We don't want that candidate to win. So you go out and fuck up voter registrations in that area. That guy gets less votes. That's one way of looking at it. So, and it's funny because, no one ever gets punished for this shit. You hear about this stuff in the news, of people cheating and like fucking all of this stuff, right? Nobody ever gets fucking punished for it. No one ever ends up going to jail for it. It'll be in the news for a little while and there's never an investigation and they get away with it constantly. Every time. They always get away with it. And that's why I named this stream Trump is going to steal the election, because I think there's a pretty big chance that, he might actually do it. So what is Trump doing right now? How is he going to steal the election? All right. Well, the big number one way, of course, finally getting to the meat of the stream here. It's already been half an hour. The big thing that's happening, which is in the news all over the place, is the rat fuckery with the post office. Right. So what's going on with the post office right now? Well, there was basically a law passed in 2006 which has handicapped the post office because it's required them to fund their pensions and benefits for the next 75 years. Right. If you've been following the story, you're probably aware of this law. It was the shit, I had it written down, but I can't remember exactly. It was something health, post office benefits, act or some shit like that. They always give these names, like they give bills like this names that mean the exact opposite of what they actually do. And this is a thing passed in 2006. I'll look it up and put it in the thing once the stream is finished. But basically, this was passed by the Bush people back in 2006 when the Republicans fucking had, control of everything. And the idea was that it was going to basically handicap the post office and make them lose money, right? Because the conservatives and the Republicans have been after the post office for pretty much decades at this point. Because they want to privatize it. They want to privatize it because it's an example of a highly, highly, highly successful government program that makes billions and billions of dollars, and they want to get their hands on that money. That's why. So they want to privatize it so that they can sell it off to fucking, FedEx or UPS or some shit like that, or even Amazon, right? And, fuck us all up and charge us 10 times what it would cost to send a fucking letter that it does today, right? Now, but here's the big thing, they passed this law in 2006, and the post office for the most part was doing okay. It was like, yeah, they were losing money, whatever, but, they're a government program, they're not supposed to be making money in the first place. They're supposed to be providing a service, and nobody out there is going to dispute that the post office provided their service really well. There's a reason why the competition for the post office hasn't managed to actually make much of a dent, right, into the post office, because, FedEx and UPS, and all that shit, they don't do the shit that the post office does. They don't go into the areas that the post office does, right? If you send something FedEx, and it's supposed to go to some town up in Alaska, and if it's a place that they don't service, what do? They send it via the post office, right? That's what they do. If Amazon, if you order something through Amazon, they don't offer shipping where you live. It gets sent via the post office, right? And they'll charge you for it too. FedEx will charge you extra money to take your package and then send it via the fucking USPS, right? That's what they fucking do. It's such bullshit. And, because the post office is mandated to go everywhere. And so they go everywhere. And they're mandated to send packages at cost. So they send their packages at cost. And they really only make their money through, postage, through stamps. They make their money through stamps. They do it, and then packing materials and shit like that. You go there, you buy a thing of tape to tape up your box, or you you buy a fucking big envelope or something, right? Sorry, I'm sweating my ass off here. I gotta drink some water. As usual, it's 90 degrees in this room back here. It's even worse because it's August. Anyway, right? And that's the idea, dude. That's what the fucking post office does, right? Republicans want to get their hands on that, right? Because it's fucking billions and billions of dollars that they could be fucking extracting from the American people, right? And, so they want to get their hands on it, and they want to give it to their criminal friends. And they've been wanting to do this for years and years and years. So that's how that law got passed in the first place, right? And the post office, for the most part, was doing okay. They were doing okay until, first off, Amazon came around. That bit into them a little bit. And then email, in general, has resulted, the internet, right? Not just email, but people paying their bills on the internet, stuff like that, has kind of brought down some of the, mail revenue. Not as many letters. People paying bills online means that less actual physical bills are getting sent through snail mail. But, at the same time, online shopping has gone way up. So things like Amazon packages and shit like that, and eBay and all that, that's actually kind of led to more activity going through the post office. I'm not so sure about what that means for their revenue or whatnot. But still, it means that they're still very highly relevant. We still very much need a post office because, you can't fucking email somebody a package from eBay or whatever, right? So they were doing okay for a little while. Then the pandemic hit, and now it kind of went way down because of COVID-19 for one reason, right? That plus the fact that they have to, something like $21 billion a year or something like that. I think it comes out the total so far that they've had to fund for their benefits for the next 75 years. It's come to $100 million or something like that. It's a shitload of money, and it's really unrealistic, and there's no actual other business out there that does this. You don't see Amazon funding their benefits packages and their pensions and stuff like that for the next 75 years. They don't do that. No other government agency does that. The military doesn't do that. They don't fund retirement for soldiers and stuff going for the next 75 years. They don't do that either, right? The post office is the only one that's been mandated to fucking do that. you know, right? Because because they want them to lose money. That's what it is. Because the Republicans want them to lose money because they want them to crash and burn so they can sell it off, right? So they were doing okay, and then it started went down a little bit, and now since we have the C virus, we are expecting something like 30 million people or so to vote through the mail, right? And Donald Trump is shitting his pants because he realizes this is what's going to make him lose. You know, because Democrats take COVID-19 way more seriously than Republicans do. More Republicans are planning on voting in person than Democrats are, so he goes, okay, Democrats are going to vote through the mail, so guess what? I'm going to fuck up the mail that way, you know. And that's what's been happening right now. So you got this mega donor to be the postmaster general. They're going through they took away all of the fucking overtime for the you know, postal workers, right? There, so now like mail and shit is starting to just pile up. Okay, stuff that is not getting sent out is just piling up in the aisles and that kind of thing. They're starting to dismantle the sorting machines. This is something that I saw on the news today, right? So basically they have these big sorting machines that can automatically sort something like 30,000 pieces of mail per day. They're dismantling these things, but the thing is they're doing it in areas, in states and in areas only where Democrats live. So he's not going into Florida and doing it for the people that voted for him in Florida. He's going into places like, you know, Chicago and telling them to get rid of the sorting machines there. And they're going through and they're ripping out drop boxes, mailboxes, getting rid of mailboxes. So if somebody does want to go vote, there's no fucking mailbox to drop their thing in. Like all of this stuff, and it's all designed to slow the mail down. So, and you know why? Because in some states, if you're, you know, some states, if you send off your you know, mail-in ballot, right, as long as it's postmarked by a certain date, it'll get counted. In other states, not so much. In other states, it has to show up on time, and if it's not there by a certain date, it doesn't get counted. So that's what he's banking on, right? And I think that they don't understand. I think first off, this is going to end up hurting Trump more than it hurts Democrats, right? And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of Trump voters are in rural areas, right? And a lot of Trump voters are old, number one. So they vote by mail. You know, they're old, they vote by mail. They can't be going out to the fuck and waiting 6 hours in line to go vote, right? So they vote absentee, or they vote, you know, via mail-in ballot. Well, that's a big portion of just Republicans in general do that. So he's going to fuck those people up. They're not going to be able to vote. And then, you know, secondly, a lot of rural America depends on the mail. They depend on the post office. You know, they get, that's like kind of like their lifeline. You know, you're hearing things about veterans and stuff that live out in red states not being able to get their fucking medicine because their medicine comes through the mail, right? Trump fucks up the mail, guys are not getting their heart medicine, shit like that, and it's only a matter of time before people start dying, you know, and a lot of those people are old, and old people tend to vote Republican, so that's going to fuck them up. They don't understand that. And here's the other thing, right? Just in general, you know, Trump is very, very concerned about the economy, you know, because that was kind of the only thing that he had going for him when, you know, that was really the only thing he had going for him ever this entire time, was that the economy was good. Because pretty much in every other way, he's a complete fuck up, and everybody knows it. Even the Republicans out there understand that this guy's a fuck up. You know, that's why you're starting to see things like Texas. You know, he's starting to poll bad in places like Texas and Georgia. You know, places that would be otherwise Republican, you know, stalwarts. States that, you know, they wouldn't have to worry about. He's starting to crack in those states because the people there are tired of his shenanigans. They're tired of him making them look like fools every year, right? And the only thing that he had going is he could say, well, we had a good economy. Well, Not so much anymore, man. You know, COVID-19 kind of took care of that shit. And it wasn't just COVID-19, it was his response to it. You know, the fact that his incredibly poor leadership that allowed things like, you know, um, the Congress to go home on a month-long vacation, right, and not get us a stimulus bill. You know, that allowed businesses to lay people off, so that we had something like 40 million people out of work at one point. That number's gone down a little bit, but it's still pretty fucking high right now. It's somewhere like something like, yeah, 15 million jobs went away permanently, you know? And then like right now it's sort of like 10 million people out of work, and every week for the last like 9 weeks there's been a million people more every week going on the fucking unemployment rolls. It's like it's ridiculous, you know. And this is because Donald Trump. You know, this is because Donald Trump didn't get us the shit that he said he would get us, you know. And I know I've said this in like the last like 4 streams, you know, but it bears repeating because it's the truth. Other countries aren't having this problem, you know. Germany is not having this problem. Japan is not having this problem. The UK is not having this problem. You know, they socialized wages over there. You know, the government guaranteed 70% of wages, right? They went to all the companies and said, hey, you know, don't lay people off. We'll pay 70% of their wages, and you don't have like, you know, 10% unemployment in fucking Great Britain. You have 3%, right? That's what we used to have. We used to have 3%. You know, everybody in Japan wore a mask. They didn't shut down at all. Everybody wore a mask. You didn't have like fucking, you know, the conservative part of their, you know, of their fucking electorate turning mask wearing into a fucking like, you know, political fucking, you know, issue, right? You didn't have like crazy Karens and shit running around in Japan, you know, demanding not to wear masks and stuff like that. You know, it's almost like the people in those other countries know what's good for the country, and they know how to make sacrifices because they've actually lived through shit like this before, and we haven't. And they don't have a crazy fucking like half of their electorate isn't fucking insane, you know. And don't think that the coronavirus was made up by George Soros and shit as part of some wacky ass you know, conspiracy theory, right? I don't know. Anyway, getting back to you know, getting on, that's a subject for another video. Getting back to the post office. Yeah, so it's basically gonna fuck Republicans up, I think. You know, I think it's gonna be very, very bad for them if they, you know, now luckily the Democrats have kind of looks like they've grown a sack, and they're trying to do something about it. Now, unfortunately, they can't actually stop it, but what they can do is hold hearings. And apparently, the Postmaster General has been threatened with prison if he doesn't show up. Let me just okay, there it goes. Here we go. Let's see. Democrats threaten arrest and lawsuit. Postmaster General DeJoy agrees to testify. So, yeah, that's kind of good. It looks like they're kind of growing a sack there. I didn't know. See, this is just like, you know, developing right now. Okay, this has an ad, but fuck the ad. No, fuck you. All right, you know what? I'm not going to Newsweek. Newsweek is bullshit. Basically, Congress can, you know, what it was is that they just requested that he come and testify. And last I heard, he told them no, because, you know, he's an asshole, right? And it's not in his interest to actually cooperate. And last I heard, you know, that was where it was at. And I just saw, just before this stream started, that, yeah, they actually did threaten to arrest him and detain him if he didn't come and testify, and it looks like he caved. And that's kind of good. See, Congress can actually do that. You know, that Congress, like, they can compel you to testify. They have the power. They actually have the sergeant at arms that can grab you and throw you in a little jail cell. They have their own little jail cell in the Congress, right? And They can throw you there until you agree to testify. They can actually, they're like one of the few bodies in the country that can actually compel you to testify like that. And the thing is, they never fucking do it. So if you remember during the impeachment, you know, they were trying to get John Bolton to testify, and he wouldn't do it, and they were trying to get all these people to like testify against Trump, and nobody went for it, and they didn't fucking have the sack to like stand up for it and compel people. And it looks like this time, you know, it must be really important now. They must like realize, hey, if we don't fucking stop this shit, we're gonna lose the election, right? So maybe now they're actually like, you know, got a pair finally and decided like, hey, if you fucking, you know, what's his name, DeJoy, the Postmaster General, like basically said, if you don't come testify, you're going to prison. So it looks like he's going to go testify on Monday. So that's good. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to see that finally the Democrats are playing fucking hardball for a change, because they never fucking do. They never do. You know, they could have done like I said during the impeachment. You know, they kept getting turned down for all of this stuff, and they wanted like Trump's fucking you know, records of this and that, and you know, phone records, and they wanted fucking, you know, his tax records and all this other shit, and they just got turned down for all of it, and they didn't push. They didn't push for, even though they have the right to push for these things, they didn't. And it's good to see that finally they're fucking standing up for themselves. And I guess they, yeah, like I said, I guess they must realize that this shit is like on the line now. And if they don't do something about this, then they're gonna fucking lose, and he's gonna steal the goddamn election. So maybe, you know, maybe they'll actually be able to stop it. I don't know. I hope so. Something tells me I don't think they will. I think what's gonna happen is that they're gonna go up, they're gonna testify, and then the Republicans in the House are going to basically throw as many monkey wrenches as they can into it and try to turn the whole thing into like some kind of like perceived witch hunt or whatever. And you know, hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully they actually play hardball for a change and manage to get some shit changed and some shit done here. So anyway, yeah, but you know, privatizing the post office in general is just a bad idea. It's really a bad idea. I mean, like I said, you know, Trump's only accomplishment was the economy. But do you have any idea what's going to happen to the economy if the post office goes away? Like, how many people actually, how many businesses out there depend on mail? Pretty much all of them, right? You know, every single business you can think of, mail is essential. Whether it's like correspondence or whether it's sending, you know, documents back and forth. You know, it's like, yeah, you can do lots of stuff through email, but you gotta pretty much have everything in hard copy nowadays anyway. You know, even buying a house, stuff like that, you can't buy a house through email. You have to actually show up and sign paperwork at some point. Things have to be overnighted all the time, all around the country, you know, contracts, and you got like, you know, all kinds of like just stuff like that everywhere around the entire country. It's gonna be like and let alone any kind of retail business. You know, like one of the things I do is I sell scrolls and stuff through Etsy, and then I have like, you know, I eBay things, you know, I sell used video games and toys and shit like that on eBay. And, you know, I make a decent amount of money. I think actually last month I made like quite a lot, because I don't know what it is, but ever since like, you know, people have been stuck at home, I think they're just shopping online a lot more. And I'm actually selling a lot of crap. I'm making money, so that's nice. But, you know, what it is, it's like, I mean, imagine just, all of the businesses that are online nowadays, right? You own some store somewhere. You probably have an online account somewhere. You have your own online business with an e-shop on it. You know, whether you're like using something like eBay to handle that, or whether you have your own, you know, or even things like Walmart or Target or, you know, whatnot. You know, big. Everything from like really huge corporations down to like mom and pop stores, you know, like there's all kinds of little indie record stores and stuff like that, and toy shops and crap like that all over the internet where you order stuff, you know, even like your favorite band, you know, like something like one of my favorite bands is the Aquabats. They have their own online store. You go there and you can buy records and t-shirts and stickers and shit like that. Well, all of that has to go through the mail. And Without the post office, you're going to have to go to FedEx or UPS, and your prices are going to go way, way up because those guys charge 10 times what you get from the post office. Hey, Raph, how you doing? Just saw you there, man. Sorry I wasn't paying attention. List a bunch of shit. I'm actually gonna talk for a little while longer, and then I'll read some of the comments. So I'll come back to what you're saying, dude. I don't want to lose track. um, but yeah, like, and it's just the truth that, the competition is way more expensive. You'll go on. In fact, you know what? Let's do a little experiment here. Okay, let's go to this little thing. This is onlineshippingcalculator.com. All right, and I'm gonna send something from Los Angeles, USA, and I'm gonna send it to New York. Okay, you can't get any further away than that in this country. And let's say it's gonna be 7 inches long and 6 inches wide and 5 inches tall. And we're gonna say it weighs 2 pounds. And now we're gonna get rates. And let's compare what it shows us between, here we go. Here is the United States Postal Service. For priority is kind of expensive. Normal priority, $10. Parcel select, $10. So if you want to send something, this is usually what? Delivery days, 2 days to 7 days. It's about $10. Okay. UPS ground, 12, 25, 33, right? If you want next day, $70. So their next day is almost twice what the post office says for their next day fucking rate. Let's go down to FedEx. FedEx getting a little close. That's 7 days, about $10, right? Getting more expensive, more expensive. Oh, if you want an overnight it, $124. Wow. So that is almost what? 3 times what the overnight here is from the post office. That's kind of a lot, man, and that just kind of shows you how much it really costs to use one of these fucking services, that doesn't actually fucking do anything. And like, seriously, like, who the fuck? I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand that shit. Like, why would anybody use those guys? They cost way, way more. And you're getting, the shit will get there the same fucking time anyway. Like, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Anyway, Jesus Christ. Where was I going with that anyway? Yeah. And it's not just like, it's just like, so, I don't know, man. Anyhow, the post office is like way less than those guys. I'm sorry, I just got like really fucking off track there for a second. Post office is like, it's like they can't compete with it. They can't compete with it because, it's the institution that's been basically doing this for, 200 years now at this point? The post office is actually older than the United States, right? It is, like, what was it, 1775 is when the post office was formed? It's actually, like, it predates the United States government. That's how old this shit is, right? And it's even like, this is even including places like, mailboxes, etc., or something like that. Those sort of like private little drop-off places. You'll go into those places and then, they'll be like, oh yeah, you can send it with these 3, you could use UPS or the FedEx or the post office. And those guys will do shit like they'll put a markup on it. And sometimes that markup will be like 100%. So they'll be like, okay, this costs $25 to send, and then in real life, if you were to just go to the goddamn post office, it would have been $12. It's so ridiculous. I don't know, man, and it's kind of sad. It's like, it's very telling about our country when we can't even keep the fucking post office running in this country. Like, this is the kind of shit that you see in the third world. This is what you would expect, like if you lived in like fucking Uganda or something like that. Oh, the post office only works 3 days a week or something, or we only send mail to these 3 areas. Or, you know, you can send it, but it's going to cost you fucking $200 to send this thing that, you know, this package that normally would cost 25, right? It's ridiculous, and it's like it's a sign that it's a sign that the country is falling apart. That's what it is. You know, if you can't even keep basic social fucking services, like, you know, there are parts of this country where people don't have clean water. Still, you know, Flint, Michigan, right? That never went away. You know, the lead in the water in Flint, Michigan, that was never solved, right? Nobody ever actually did anything about that. You know, sorry, I'm drawing down here. Like, I'm drawing, like, under here, and you guys can't see it. Let me move this up a little bit. You know, that was never solved. You know, healthcare, right? Something like 30 million people in this country still don't have healthcare. Like, we got, you know, the ACA. Well, the ACA left, like, a big gap, you know, Obamacare, right? Left a big gap of people that didn't qualify for it. That never got fixed. Those people still don't have healthcare. You know, there's things like you see these documentaries on YouTube and stuff of, like, groups like Doctors Without Borders, you know, groups that used to go down to, like, Paraguay and, like, fucking, you know, Ecuador and, like, you know, Vietnam and Cambodia and shit. And they would go out and, like, give poor people living in clay huts dental care. Except in real life, they're going to, like, Cincinnati and doing it, right? And giving people dental care, people that can't afford it in major American cities, you know, stuff like that. Like, what the fuck kind of country do you want to live in where, like, shit, like, I mean, shit, man, that says third world to fucking me, you know? I don't know, man. Like, I live in Los Angeles, right? And, you know, before, like, fucking the pandemic happened and we were not allowed to go outside anymore, you know, I used to go to cons and things, and there would be, like, the Los Angeles Convention Center. And that's kind of a few blocks away from Skid Row, you know, and Skid Row is kind of notorious for being, like, a major area where lots of homeless people and stuff hang out, right? But it never really was that bad, at least I thought, until maybe the last 10 years, you know. I mean, it was bad. You had homeless people, and there were a lot of them, but it wasn't like a destitute hellhole until right after 2008. And it just got really, really bad right around then, right around the housing crisis, if you remember, the economic crash and the housing crisis. And it just sort of seemingly tripled in size, and now there's, like, entire fucking, like, like, cities of, like, people living in tents and boxes and shit, like Hoovervilles is what they used to call those, you know, back in the Great Depression. They called them Hoovervilles, you know, people living in shanties and stuff like that. You know, that was something that was like, yeah, you saw that shit in the Great Depression, you know, and that was like something that you didn't, you know, that was one of the great, like, you know, shames of, like, you know, the American, like, experience, right? We're supposed to be this country where, like, you know, opportunity knocks here and the streets are paved with gold and all that other shit. And in real life, it's like, no, man, in real life, the rich are extremely rich here and the poor are extremely poor. And if you have nothing, chances are you're going to stay that way. If you were born and you didn't have anything, chances are you're going to stay that way when you die. That's what it's like in the United States. And that's kind of the hidden, you know, truth of America that people who believe in American exceptionalism just don't want to admit, right? It's like, this is like, you know, the people like conservatives. They don't want to admit it, and when they do, they blame it on Democrats. When in real life, it's their policies, which is basically making all of this shit happen. Anyway, so getting back to the election, because I'm going off on, like, tangents and shit here. Yeah, don't let Trump steal the election, folks. You know, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about in regards to this, and this was something that actually, there's a commenter that comes on my videos a lot named Cody Course, and this is something that he thought up a couple of streams ago, right? And I've been kind of thinking about it, and basically something that he brought up was during the height of the protests in Portland, right? when Trump was sending his secret police out there to fucking like kidnap people and shit. Apparently, the fear, right, among people on the left now is that um, when the election hits, Donald Trump is going to send these people out to go, you know, basically thrash people waiting in line to vote. You know, he's going to send these people out because a lot of the places where people vote, you know, happen to be places like courthouses and, you know, buildings that are otherwise owned by the Fed. And he's going to send these people out to basically like stop people from voting, saying, oh, we're protecting this. And then there's too many people here and they're going to like say that it's a riot and shit and turn people away from voting. And do I think that'll happen? I don't know. I don't think that he'd be able to get away with that. You know, of course, he's gotten away with every other fucking thing, right? I mean, this president has basically been held accountable for nothing. For, you know, blatantly breaking the law left and right for 3 years now. And nothing's happened. Every person that's been put in prison, he's either pardoned or, you know, if they did something, if they actually tried to indict him, like Michael Cohen, then they've gone away harder. You know, but like, yeah, so maybe he will do it, but I don't think that, I think if that happened, then you would see civil unrest in this country unlike anything you've ever seen before, right? I think one thing that the George Floyd protests have shown us is that the country is not as stable as everybody thinks it is, right? And the George Floyd thing, it's still going. So that's another thing that, you know, we're like, everybody thinks that shit's over with because you don't see it on the news. No, it's still going. There's still protests in Oregon. There's still protests everywhere around the country. Not just Oregon, but there's still in Los Angeles, in, you know, pretty much every major city in every state, even places like Austin, you know, Texas and Louisiana and stuff like that. Still happening. You know, they're not huge giant riots like they were, but there's still protests, right? And I think what that shows, it shows that right now it's sort of like, it's like a tea kettle that's just one little degree away from boiling, right? And, you know, it started to boil over for a little bit, and then it kind of, you know, that's what political movements like this, that's what they kind of are. You know, it's like you get the public has to let off steam every once in a while. You know, things will hit a boiling point, and then it's like, shh, you know what I mean? And then there'll be a protest, and, you know, it'll devolve into violence, and then it'll kind of like, that sort of lets the pressure off for a little bit. You know, but it's like the fact that it hasn't really ended kind of shows that we're still at that boiling point. And I really think that if he were to try to strong arm his way into victory, you know, by using tactics like, especially using federal officers to suppress the vote, I think that shit is not going to end for him very well. And I think that might actually be a spark that actually causes some serious violence to happen in this country. And I don't think that the military supports Donald Trump. They don't. They don't do it. And the way that we know that they don't do it is because they refused to go out and quell protests themselves. So if you remember that, you know, a week before he sent out all of the federal officers, right, he basically tried to get the military to do that for him, and they wouldn't do it. They refused to play. They refused to be deployed, you know, because he wanted to deploy the military on the streets of Washington, D.C. And they basically said, no fucking way, you know, in so many words, you know, dear Mr. President, please kiss our asses, right? And so that's why he turned to Bill Barr. And that's why instead of sending the army out on the streets in Portland, he sent, you know, there were like federal officers, guys from the FBI, the guys from ICE, guys from the prison group, whatever the fuck they're called, I can never remember, you know, the Federal Protection Service, shit like that, and not the National Guard, not the Army, right, not the Marines, okay, and I really think that if that shit happens, you know, he would need the military in order to actually seize the vote by and to seize the election by force, he would actually need the military because there's not enough cops, right? Now, one thing that I could see happening are paramilitary groups, like say the Proud Boys or the Three Percenters or these Stand in the Gap fucking assholes or any of those guys, right? Um, Militia types. I could see those guys going out on election day. Whether or not they would actually be in cahoots or coordinated by the Trump campaign or something, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I doubt it. I doubt that that type of connection actually exists, but you never know. But I could see those guys going out and intimidating people at polls, um, going out to minority areas like Proud Boys and shit, going out to minority areas and starting fights with people, shooting people. Let's not forget that, Proud Boys, these guys are fucking murdering people, right? They're like, they're basically a fucking hate group now. The Proud Boys are like one step down from the KKK at this point. Going around at these protests and like shooting people and killing them. That's not, I'm not making that shit up. That's actually like true shit, right? And I could very well see them going out to places in swing states, Florida, going out to minority areas in Florida and intimidating voters. And I think everybody should be on the lookout for that. When this election happens, be on the lookout for that and be ready to defend yourself, call the police and also defend yourself because the chances are the police aren't going to fucking help you, right? So that could very well be a fear of mine. But whether or not that would be coordinated with the Trump people, who knows? I don't know. I think that would be easier. These pathetic wannabe brown shirt assholes will be easier to stand against than if they were actually federal cops or officers, federal officers, or if they were like army people. I think it'd be easier to fight back against the Proud Boys and those types of guys. Those sort of para-racist, paramilitary fucking pieces of shit. Because in real life, those guys are just a bunch of fucking pussies anyway, right? And would probably run away the moment like an actual fight, some actual resistance came out. The crowd would turn against those guys and they'd run away like a bunch of little bitches. But it would be different if there were actual like army guys out there or something. And so I don't know. I mean, I'm not so afraid of that. Let's just say I'm not so afraid of that kind of thing happening. I'm more afraid of him doing things like nerfing the post office and shutting down polling places and that kind of thing, kicking people off voter rolls, and all the usual voter suppression tactics. I think they're just gonna do that to like, the nth degree this time. And it's happened in the past. I think basically if they can get it to a point, I think the plan is they want to get it to a point where they can claim that, there was some sort of fraud, right? And then it gets to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court decides the election. I think that is Trump's plan of attack. And it's not like that hasn't happened in the past, right? I mean, shit. If you look back, I mean, it was the same kind of thing in 2000, contested election goes all the way to the Supreme Court votes along party lines in such a way that screws the guy that actually won, and the thing is, Al Gore actually did win that election, right? He actually did get more votes. If they would have continued counting, like the fucking law said they were supposed to count, Al Gore would have had more votes, and a lot of this shit that happened over the last 20 years wouldn't have happened. No Iraq War, right? No fucking, 100 million people fucking dead in the Middle East. I mean, who even knows? That's the thing, they don't even know how many people are dead because of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. They don't even know. It's just, they stopped counting. So it could be 100 million, not 100 million, sorry. It could be, up to, 1 million people, right? killed directly killed because of our actions, and those, who even knows, right? I mean, who even knows how history would have turned out if the law was just actually obeyed the way it was supposed to be. If we actually would have had the guy who actually got the most amount of votes became president, right? Who even knows how much different, and most likely better things would be right now. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of pointless to speculate about that kind of thing. I mean, all we can really do is vow to not allow it to happen again, right? So, yeah, get out there and vote. So how do you fight this, right? How do you prevent this type of, how do you counteract this type of vote suppression, right? You have to actually vote in mass. You have to vote, you have to overwhelm them. And that's basically partially the reason why Obama won, because he had, way too many actual people voting for him than the suppression tactics could knock out. You know, if you look in 2008, Obama had something like, 69 million people. Let's look that up. I'm going to look up real fast here, you know, 2009 election popular vote. Okay. And let's see, 2008 election popular vote. All right, so if you look, let's turn on the monitor here once again. This is the 2008 United States presidential election. Popular vote, 69 million people. John McCain got 59 million people. So he won by 10 million votes, right? I mean, goddamn, right? That's what we need, And so that was like such a large, threshold that they basically couldn't, they couldn't suppress the vote enough to stop that. That's how you get around this stuff. That's how you beat voter suppression, is that you overwhelm it, because it doesn't matter how much they monkey with the fucking voter rolls. It doesn't matter how much they try to slow down the fucking post office, how try to slow down the mail, right? How many people they kick off of the rolls, how many laws, how many tricks they do. If millions and millions and millions of people cast their votes, you're gonna win. One way, that's how it works, right? We have to do that. And is that gonna happen this time? I don't know, maybe. I don't think people are as excited about Joe Biden. In fact, I know they're not as excited about Joe Biden. People wanted, the person on the left that the leftists and the progressives and shit wanted was Bernie Sanders, and he's not happening, right? The Democratic establishment seems to be doing everything that they wanted, that they can to fuck the progressive wing out of any kind of involvement at all. Basically, they're saying we don't need you guys. They won't even let, I guess AOC is going to speak at the convention for a minute. They wouldn't even let certain people speak there and all this other shit. And it's so they're not really showing us any love. So that's going to it's not doing much to motivate a very large part of the Democratic base to get out there. And it's well, most people who are voting for Joe Biden are voting for him because they don't like Donald Trump, right? Well, that's a real shitty way to motivate people. It's you don't want people voting for your guy because the other guy is 10 times worse. You know what I mean? You want people to be excited about your guy. It's well, what does he have to offer? And people aren't. People are not excited about Joe Biden. And that's kind of a serious problem. That's a serious problem, because you know what that means? That means that if voting is inconvenient, if the guy, say you're going to vote for Joe Biden, but you can't get off of work, or it's inconvenient that day, or you drive by and the line is super long, you're not going to do it. You're going to be oh, well, fuck it, I don't like him anyway. Whereas the Trump voter, who actually is motivated to vote for Donald Trump, will go wait in that long-ass line. He'll take the time off of work and lose getting paid, right? He'll do all that shit to go vote, and he'll make sure his vote gets counted, while you probably won't, because you don't actually give a fuck that much in the first place. And that's, that's just kind of how it is. It's like motivation, you know, it's not good enough to just not like the guy you're voting against. I mean, maybe Trump is a special case because people really don't like his ass. They really, really don't. Even in red states, people don't like him. And I'm hoping that's enough. I'm hoping it's like enough that people despise him more than they don't care about Joe Biden. And I hope, because me personally, I'll fucking I will wait for 2 weeks straight in the fucking rain, right? To fucking, I'll get in line at fucking midnight the night before to go vote for Joe Biden because I hate Donald Trump so much. I don't even give a fuck. I'll vote. They could run a balloon with a fucking happy face drawn on it and a mop on its head and say that this is our candidate, and I would vote for it to get rid of Donald Trump. But it's but once again, it's most people don't follow politics, right? Because I understand, I understand what a clear and present danger he is to the country, but most people don't follow politics. Most people really don't care that much. They're not that as invested in the process as political junkies like myself are, right? So, and you can't blame people either, because it's they make it as hard as fucking possible for people to get into it. You know what I mean? We don't really teach civics in this country very much at all. We don't teach people that the results of, their quality of life is a direct result of the political process. We don't teach people that in this country, right? The way your environment is right now outside is a direct result of the political process. Right now, it's dry and it's fire season. And, every year in Los Angeles, right around, in California in general, we have these massive wildfires. We didn't used to. People got to remember that. This didn't used to be a thing that happened every fucking year. This kind of started in the 90s. And before that, you get wildfires here and there, but the environment definitely has changed. It's gotten a lot more dry. It's gotten a lot more, conducive to giant fucking wildfires. There used to be storms in September, October. I remember this shit. I remember because it would be Halloween and it'd be raining. And it would rain every fucking year at Halloween. And then it stopped doing that. And now all of a sudden we have wildfires every year at Halloween. Stuff like that. Pollution. Pollution is a direct result of the political process. Where you live. Is the river polluted? Do you have smog? Right? Right? Why do you have smog? Because you don't have fucking sufficient regulations to stop smog. That's why people don't put this. People don't think about that. They go, "Oh, we have smog because cars are dirty and there's factories and blah 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 blah." Yeah, well, cars are dirty and there's factories in places where there isn't smog, right? How come they don't have smog and we do? Because where we live, they're not doing enough to fucking try to curb that shit. Well, how do you curb it? You curb it through regulations. How do you get regulations? Through voting, through the political process, right? Everything down to even effects on your economy. Now, true, the economy isn't 100% controlled by who's in office, but they're a pretty big influence on how the economy goes. Case in point, Donald Trump gets elected, starts a giant trade war with China. The trade war is still going, by the way. Let's not forget about that right now. Hundreds, if not thousands, of farmers out there all around the country who have basically lost their markets because of Donald Trump. If not permanently lost their markets, millions and millions of tons of soybeans and shit like that basically rotting away because they can't get sold. This is all shit that's still happening. That's a direct result of Donald Trump's policies. Right there, The economy. So look at the economy of, all these farmlands. This is Trump country out there, basically being screwed by the fucking guy they voted for. You know, there is a subreddit on Reddit, called it's a subreddit called Leopards Ate My Face, and it's a place where you go and you post things, and the description of the subreddit is, "I can't believe leopards ate my face," says lady who voted for the Leopards Ate My Face party. Right? And it's a place where you go and you post stories and articles and memes and stuff about people getting, bad effects of what they voted for. And these are examples, so you gotta keep all this shit in mind. You having trouble finding a job, right? That's because of the political process. That's because of some policy, maybe not 100, but it's influenced by the policy of your elected officials out there. Don't have health care for people, can't get health care for can't get affordable health care, right? That's also due to the political process, regulations and stuff like that. Some countries on this earth have very affordable health care, if not free health care. We don't. Why? Because our politicians are basically supporting the for-profit healthcare system that we have. And they're not just supporting, they're enabling it. Right? Like, seriously, people, like, really need to understand this. They need to understand that, there are solutions to these problems that affect us out here. You know what I mean? Like, America is shitty on purpose. We have a shitty healthcare system, and we have a shitty criminal justice system. We have shitty cops. We have shitty environmental policy and all that for a reason. And the reason is because people are making money off of the way it is now. There really is no bigger, deeper reason than that. A lot of people on the left and the right, especially on the right, like to believe that the world is run, by a bunch of people in a smoky room somewhere, making deals and stuff, right? And that's not necessarily true. It's just that it's shitty because, why is it shitty? Because someone's making money from it. Somebody's making money from the prison industrial complex, right? Somebody's making money from polluting. Somebody's making money from paying people low wages, right? Shit like that. Someone's making money by starting a trade war with China, right? I mean, that's really all what it comes down to. And one of the only ways you can fight shit like that is by being politically active and, getting people in there who will pass laws for the stuff that you want. So, anyway, there was one more thing I wanted to talk about where we're at. We're at 1:30. I wanted to talk about one more thing here before we moved on to comments. So, the wrong Trump. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but this is kind of a sad story. Excuse me. So Donald Trump's brother died a couple days ago. I think his name was Fred Trump, right? They won't say what he died of. 71-year-old man. Could be a lot of things, heart attack, whatever. Maybe he was chronically sick, whatever. They won't say. I think the reason why they won't say what he died of is because he probably died of the Rona, and they don't want to say that because it's embarrassing to the president, but that's just my, conspiracy theory there. Anyway, so what happened is that basically people started going on Twitter with the hashtag wrong Trump, which is kind of fucked up, but at the same time, I think fucking hilarious. Right? But it is fucked up. I mean, the man is president, even if he is a fucking total piece of shit and an asshole. And, and even if I wouldn't cry a fucking tear if he was the one that died instead of his brother, but it's still fucked up. So, a lot of people out there got angry at that. and started going on Twitter and like clutching their pearls. Conservatives, you know, because conservatives always clutch their pearls whenever somebody says something, you know, that upsets them like this. Even though, like, if Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama would have died, you know, everybody knows that they wouldn't, you know, they would be saying shit like this in a nanosecond. You know, don't fool yourself, because they would. But, you know, since it was an insult to one of their own, then they have to act indignant and like, oh my god, how dare you, and all this other shit. Right. So, anyway, a few weeks ago, Donald Trump was having an interview, and somebody said to him, you know, 150,000 people have died during the pandemic. How do you see that as a success? And Donald Trump said, it is what it is. So, after all of these Republicans got all pearl clutchy on Twitter because everybody was tweeting the wrong Trump, the response immediately turned around and people said, hashtag it is what it is. Right? So, I think that shit was hilarious. You know, there is nothing better or funnier to me or more deserving when someone who's hateful and someone who shrugs off, you know, the suffering of others gets exactly what they dished out. So, yeah, it's sad. The president's brother died. That's sad. But at the same time, you know, 160,000 people. How many people are dead now? Let's just take a look here. You know, we do this every stream. Let's do it one more time. Coronavirus deaths. Okay, I gotta make sure I don't say that word because, you know, the Twitter bots are gonna kick me and shit. How many people are dead now this week? 170,000. Yeah, 170,000. Okay, that's a lot. Yeah, so, you know, when people like, you know, so when he says 170,000 people are dead and he just goes, well, it is what it is, I think it is a highly appropriate response to respond back when people say, the president's brother is dead, have some compassion. I think it's highly appropriate to say, well, it is what it is. You know why? Because fuck him. That's why. Right? And you know what? I'm happy that I live in a country where I am allowed to say that about the President of the United States. Fuck him. You know? He's an asshole. And he deserves every little bit of grief that people gave him. Because he didn't give a shit about 170,000 deaths of other people. He doesn't give a fuck about them at all. And we know he doesn't give a fuck because even right now, to this day, he still doesn't take the goddamn pandemic seriously. You know, he started off lying about it, saying that it was like not a big deal and it would go away and all this other shit and it's going to be just like the flu and it's going to go away. And he was doing shit like, oh yeah, here goes the bunch of people on a fucking liner, we're not going to let them in the country. And now he's saying shit like, yeah, we do so many tests. In fact, we should slow down tests. That's the thing that he said. You know, and we've got, you know, the best testing in the world. We don't, you know, our numbers are better than people in England and Britain and in fucking Italy, and that's bullshit. They're not. You know, all of this stuff, they're doing every single fucking thing they can to deflect, you know, and try to, like, distract people from this. And they even allowed it to get a foothold. If you remember what we were talking about last week with Jared fucking Kushner, they even allowed it to get a foothold in this country because it was hitting people in blue states more. And they thought that they could just, like, turn it around and blame it on the blue states. Right? And that's why they didn't do anything. That's why they still don't have a national testing strategy. They started to create one and then they 86'd it. And now it's rampant. And now it's in the red states. It's in the red states where, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic, they were saying, oh yeah, look at Texas and look at Florida. You know, barely 1,000 people are dead in those states. right? And now it's like they have as many people dead in those states as they do in California. Now it's hitting there very hard. It's like, oh, them chickens have kind of come home to roost there. It's almost like a virus doesn't give a shit about your fucking politics. Unbelievable. So, yeah, he could have, the thing is, his inaction on this is the reason why there's so many people dead. You know, the reason why there's 170,000 people dead and counting is because of his incredibly poor leadership. It's because of his inaction. Because he wasted time with shit like this. Because he did not enact a national fucking health plan, testing strategy. Right. Because he did stuff like, basically steal shipments of PPE and then send them, like the governor of California would order, a shipment of PPE, and then like fucking Trump would have Trump would have it intercepted at the airport, and they'd basically steal it, and then they'd send it to Florida, right? Whereas where his political allies were. Or else Jared Kushner would redirect it, and then we find out that they're selling this shit on the open fucking market. Unbelievable. I still don't understand why Jared Kushner isn't in prison for that. That's true shit. That's not a conspiracy theory. This isn't just something that I just fucking made up. Like Alex Jones just making shit up. No, this is true. This all happened. All right? Unbelievable. And that's why right now we can't go safely vote in person. That's why people are like scared to that's why we're going to vote by mail, and he's going to fuck up the election, right? That's why all the businesses are still closed, and why kids are getting sent back to school. And we're finding, it was something like 9,000 kids in one way. How many kids in one day? Let me just look that up, because I saw this ridiculous amount of cases. Children cases, coronavirus cases. Because school went back to, school came in, right? So kids are going back to school now because for some reason it's safe for kids to go to school, but it's not safe enough to I don't know, open our businesses, or for them to hold the the Republican National Convention. It's not safe enough for that. Of course, Trump's son is learning remote. He's not actually going to be in school in person. Right. And it was here we go. CDC says rate of coronaviruses in children rising. As of August 3rd, 7.3% of all reported cases in the United States were among children, And it's a lie, it's a misconception to say that children are immune to this disease. They're not immune. Okay, if your kid has pre-existing conditions just like an adult, then they're a high risk case. It just so happens that normal, ordinary, healthy children seem to survive it. But normal, ordinary, healthy children survive lots of shit. They survive the flu more often than old people too, right? But they're not immune. And the bigger danger is that they're going to spread it to other people in their family. So yeah, maybe your 6-year-old kid will get through it just fine, but then it gets home and then you catch it. Their parents catch it. Your grandparents catch it, and then they fucking die of it. Right? That's what's going to fucking happen. So it's not the kid that we have to worry about. It's all of the people that the child comes in contact with. That's the real fucking problem. So anyway, basically it's like that incredibly bad fucking leadership, that we're seeing out there, kind of says to me, it's like, yeah, he deserves it. He deserves this hate. He deserves when people don't show any compassion to his ass because his brother died, it's because he's not showing any compassion to them, because he's not actually doing anything to help people, that doesn't directly benefit him politically. I mean, and don't think for a second that, if the shoe was on the other foot, if this was President Obama, whose brother died, or, Joe Biden's brother, or any other person, or Hillary Clinton's brother, or something like that, don't think for a second that the conservatives and the Republicans wouldn't be doing the same thing, because they would. They would. You know, these are people for 8 years spread all kinds of weird, crazy, ridiculous misinformation and conspiracy theories about Obama. You know, saying shit that he was like gay, right? Or he was a crack addict or something, or that he was like a secret Muslim terrorist plant. I don't know how that shit. People actually believed that, you know. Trump said that himself, that he was the founder of ISIS. You remember that? He actually, and then somebody said, "You didn't really mean that, do you?" And then he turned around and doubled down on it and said, "Yes, he's the founder of ISIS." That's true shit, you know. Trump, you know, people saying that Obama wasn't born in the country, birtherism, right? They're doing that same thing to Kamala Harris now, right? I mean, that's fucking a joke. That's ridiculous, right? Fucking nobody even gives a shit. Like, you know, Ted Cruz wasn't born in this country. Nobody's giving him shit for that. You know, he wasn't. He was born in Canada, right? You know, his parents were Canadian citizens. He was born in Canada. He never actually became a citizen, Ted Cruz. Yet he runs for president. Nobody fucking questions his citizenship. You know, John McCain was born in Panama, right? I mean, no one questioned his fucking citizenship. You know, what does John McCain and Ted Cruz have in common besides their skin color? Right? You know, it's because they're fucking Republicans. Because shit like this it only matters when you're not a Republican. You know, god damn. I mean, what else? I mean, just think about all the ridiculous conspiracy theories. You know, there were people that said that Obama was an illegitimate child, and that his father was fucking like Malcolm X, or they said that his marriage to Michelle was like a sham marriage because he was really gay. And then some people were saying shit like, oh, Michelle Obama is really an ape or something like that, or she was a trans woman or whatever, you know. And then let's you know, all the conspiracy theories about him trying to take away their guns and all that other stuff, and then like ridiculous stuff like eating the wrong kind of fucking mustard on his sandwich, like, you know, I mean, it was like basically the guy, you know, got up and took a step the wrong way, and it was like Republican fucking outrage, you know. And it wasn't just crazy people on the internet who were like nuts about Obama either, you know, actual like politicians and shit. You know, if you remember during that one speech he was giving, healthcare speech, there was a senator named Joe Wilson stood up in the middle of his speech and screamed, "You lie!" You know, at the president. Has anybody done that to Trump? Has anybody gotten up when a senator or a congressman gotten up when Donald Trump was telling a speech and then screamed, "You're a liar," in the middle of his speech? Have they done that? No. You know, the governor, Jan Brewer, at the time, this was in the news, I remember this, gets in an argument with Obama, and she's like waving her fucking finger in his face and all that stuff. Has anybody done that to Trump? You know? Like, you're not supposed to bitch out the president of the United States. Doesn't matter how badly you don't fucking like him. You know, there's like a modicum of respect that comes with that office. Even somebody like Trump deserves that respect when you're, you know, at an official state function, right? You know, if you're a governor and you're meeting with the president, you show that respect. It doesn't matter if you didn't vote for him. It doesn't matter if you don't like him. You know, and that's why you don't see people like, you know, that's why it was such a big deal when fucking Nancy Pelosi clapped at Trump like that. You remember when she did that? She clapped at him, that little like, "Oh, you're such a good boy." Oh, you remember that little golf clap? That's why that was such a big fucking deal. Because she was showing him disrespect. Because you're not supposed to do that to the fucking president, right? Like, you know, I mean, I can't even think of any other. I think that was it. I think that's the only time that I can think of where an actual person in office did something like that to Donald Trump. And, you know, to be honest, it needs to happen more often. It needs to happen more often. They should be like leering and jeering. And when he goes to have a speech, they should have a guy making balloon animals. Right? That's what I would do. If I was like Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi, I would just say, you know, I would like hire a guy in a clown suit to go and make Trump balloon clowns. And that's what I would do. Like, you know how they have like interpreters who do sign language and shit at speeches? I would have a clown making balloon animals next to Donald Trump at every single one of his speeches in Congress. That's what I would do. I would like paint the podium where he comes up in like clown colors and put a popcorn machine behind him and like play clown music behind it when he goes to give the fucking like State of the Union, right? That's what I would do. I would like randomly break into his speech, you know, like and like have everybody in my caucus like dressed up as clowns and start throwing fucking like pies at each other, you know, because he doesn't deserve the respect that he gets, you know, but they give it to him anyway because he's the goddamn president, and that's what you're supposed to fucking do when there's a president. So I don't know. I mean, you know, so yeah, don't let them fool you, okay? I mean, these are people that were selling like, you know, there were people that were selling paper targets with Obama's face in them, you know, like when you go to a shooting range and shit like that. So don't be fooled, you know, because it's only free speech when it applies to them. Okay, so that's something you got to remember. All right, these guys, they don't have integrity. They don't have integrity. They don't really care about your rights. They don't really care about freedom. They don't really care about democracy. All they really give a fuck about is getting what they want, winning, poning the libs or whatnot, and that's it. And they seemingly will stoop to any kind of like backhanded, ridiculous fucking chicanery it takes to win. And that's what we're seeing right now. You know, just to kind of tie all this back together, that's what we're seeing right now from the Trump people. That's why they're nerfing the fucking post office. That's why they're kicking people off of voter rolls. That's why they're like, you know, trying to discourage people from voting by mail, you know, because they're fucking doing everything they can, every kind of you know, backhanded bit of fucking rat fuckery they can to win, because they don't have integrity. They don't actually fucking care about any of it. You know, all they care about is staying in power. So the only way that you can respond to somebody like that is just to say fuck you. That's it. You can't debate with that. You can't reason with that. You can't debate with that. You know, you follow the rule. If you follow the rules and they don't, then guess what? They win, right? So maybe it's time that we start to like actually fucking, you know, play hardball, right? You know, if you have a bully, right? What do your parents tell you how to deal with bullies? Okay, because there's a right way and a wrong way to deal with a bully, right? The wrong way to deal with a bully is to placate them, to ignore them. You know, when your mom tells you don't fight the bully, that just drives you down to his level, right? That's the high road. You know, taking the high road with a bully never works. Okay, because it makes you feel good. You know, what that is, it's an excuse so that when the bully kicks your ass and steals your lunch money, you feel like you did the right thing. Well, I'm not going to fight that guy. That means I'm better than him. Yeah, well, and that's cool and all that shit, but in real life, the guy's kicking your ass every fucking day and stealing your lunch money. The effective way to deal with bullies is to beat the shit out of them. So when your dad says, right, this is the difference, you know, your dad says, go up to that bully the next time he fucks with you and kick him in the nuts, right? And then fucking push his ass over on the ground and then kick him in the fucking stomach and beat on him until his friends pull you off. And when the teacher fucking catches you guys and pulls you in, I'll go to bat for you. When your dad tells you that, you know, and then the next day at school you fucking do that, guess what? Yeah, maybe it sucks and you get busted. That bully never fucks with you again. Right? That's how you deal with bullies. You don't run away from bullies. Okay? You have to confront them because they'll never stop. If you don't, that's why they're bullies. They're bullies because they get away with it. And if you don't fucking confront bullies, you know, if you don't stop them, then they're always going to fuck with you forever. You know? And that's what we got to do. It's like, you know, we've just been ignoring these people. We've been placating them. You know, we've been giving in. We've been taking the high road. You know, you hear that a lot from people on the left, you know, and Democrats and shit like that. You know, when they aim low, we aim high. Fuck that. All right? When they aim low, kick them in the fucking nuts. Okay? Fuck that. Fuck, you know, fuck the we aim high shit. Nobody cares. You know, nobody cares. People want results. I don't give a fuck. anymore. I don't care that especially when it comes to a politician that you vote for. You know what I mean? Oh, he wouldn't attack them, you know, he wouldn't do negative attack. Fuck that. Go all out. Negative attack all you fucking want, you know. I want to see 100,000 negative Trump attacks out there, right? Because negative fucking attacks work, all right? Kick him in the fucking nuts, you know, politically, right? That's how you deal with bullies, right? And that's the way that we got to win this time. Fight back. So that makes me happy. So when I hear that, you know, that they threatened the Postmaster General with prison time if he didn't come testify, that makes me happy. I'm actually very happy about that. You know, for like, I think that's the first time I can remember ever that the fucking Democrats actually like stood up for them fucking selves. You know, in 30 years, 25 years now that I've been politically active, you know, probably longer at this point. Like, this is the first time that I can remember them actually fucking like getting tough and kicking the bully in the nuts. So, anyway, 151. Looks like, hey Raph, you were the only guy that commented this time. Let's see, what did you got here? Can't be here for long, but the anti-mask people are also just immature crybabies who'd gladly let their own children die to avoid the smallest amount of work, effort, and responsibility. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's one thing that I don't get here is just how fucking mask wearing became politicized, you know? And, you know, we should have known that was going to happen, just seeing the kind of country we live in, you know, like, I don't know. We should have known that the Alex Jones people and the conspiracy theories and the QAnon folks and guys like that were going to politicize this shit. I mean, I don't know. I really think that this country is like, you know, for you know, and this country's great, right? I really do love America, right? There's really great things about this country that you don't find elsewhere in the world, but there's also a lot of drawbacks to living here. And one of those drawbacks is that, you know, there are just a very large amount of fucking kooks and crazies that live in this country. And it's only gotten worse, you know. And I'm kind of getting the feeling that mostly these people were always sort of there, you know. But before the internet came around, they were just kind of in the background. It was like, you know, oh, it's just your crazy Uncle Ed or some shit. You know, like every town has a guy that's just like, you know, one of those crazy, kooky, anti-government sovereign citizen dudes. Like back when I was a kid back in the valley, there was a guy that lived by a 7-Eleven who would put these big signs in his front yard with all of this shit written on them. He'd put these huge signs up, and you would just look at him and go, God, that guy's crazy, some kind of schizophrenic or some shit. And now it's like, guys like that have their own radio shows now. And people believe it. That's the problem, is that the problem is people are fucking stupid. And if it's like on the internet, people will fucking believe it. So, anyway, you know, I don't know, man. And, you know, the way you fight that is with education. You just have to, like, spend more money on education, and that shit ain't gonna fucking happen. So who even knows, you know. Encourage science and rationality, people. I don't know. Shoma, another point, Trump doesn't mention Amazon, FedEx, and UPS rely on the UPS to keep their own prices down for certain services, and the end of the UPS will affect their loyal customers badly as well. Yep, it will. Yeah, I think we touched on that a little bit. You know, there's areas that they don't go, you know, and if you send something through, like FedEx, for example, and it goes to an area that they don't service, they'll gladly take your money, and then they'll just send it through the post office, and it's like, there you go, man. I don't really think they understand. I don't think they understand how badly, you know, if the post office goes away, how badly that's gonna fuck the economy up so bad. It's gonna really fuck things up for a lot of people, mainly people in rural areas who are gonna be really screwed. But you know, generally everybody that interacts with the post office, which is fucking everybody. So I don't think they get it, man. Anyway, thank you guys all for joining us. Let's take a look at what we got here. So I think we're almost done with this guy. Let me zoom out just a little bit if I can. Let's see. Let's go to our video capture device and let's go to properties. I think I might actually be zoomed out as much as I can be zoomed out. Yeah, I am. Let's cancel that. Can I zoom out? No, that just zooms in further. All right. Cancel that. I want to get more of this into the picture. Let me see if I can make this go up a little higher, maybe. Maybe they can do that. Just so I can show you guys where we're at. Because I think we're getting close to the end with this guy. So here's our plague demon. And please forgive the trucks and stuff driving around outside, but if I don't have the window open, then it'll literally be 100 degrees in this room, so gotta have the window open. Not bad. I think it's looking pretty good. I think maybe we'll put a little bit more around the edge. I'm not going to draw it all the way to the edge. And I think what I'm going to do is put some like devil symbols and shit around here, like ancient sort of eldritch writing. And then we'll turn this into a print. And I'll make prints of it and, you know, sell it. And even I think what I'm going to do is that for my fans that watch my live streams, I'm going to give you guys a coupon code when this is ready so that you can get it for free. You know, so I'll put it up on my SD shop and there'll be a coupon code and it'll be a one-time use code where you can buy anything from my shop for free. And so if you want this, you can get it for free. So that'll be coming soon. I think maybe we've got one more. Actually, I don't know. Maybe I'll finish this off in a stream, or maybe I'll just finish it in between. But because that is kind of what I do. I mentioned that I have an SD shop, right? And just to kind of show you guys, here's what one of my prints looks like. You know, something like that when I'm done with it. So like I'm thinking something like this. I'll just put like some kind of crazy ass evil looking writing around it and then make a print out of it. So these are actual prints that I sell. If you guys want to support my channel, let me just go to my let me give you guys my ending speech here. So first let's go to Etsy and then let's go to Patreon. Let me just let's see, ATA Patreon, and then let me go to my DeviantArt side. Then let's go to my webcomic as well. And then let's also go to my Instagram. Okay, so here we go, folks. Thank you all for joining. Here's my end of the stream promotion of my stuff. So I'm going to talk about stuff that I do. This here is my Instagram, Dirty Kitchen Press. And if you like what I do, please follow me on Instagram. I post mainly artwork here, sketches, comics, things like that. You know, doodles, that kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. I also have a Patreon. So right now, I don't actually have anybody on my Patreon, but if you want to join, if you like what I do, please consider following me on Patreon. It's just at Hawanja at Patreon. I'll put links to all this stuff in the bottom. And for $1 a month, I will give you early access and a shout out. And for $10, I will do a video on the subject of your choice, or I will draw a black and white art piece there for you. That would be something like this. I'll draw something like this for you. You know, with this level of detail, right? And then if you want to be a super awesome dude and give me $20 a month, I will give you a free item of choice from my SD store and everything in the current other levels. So speaking of that, SD, this is my SD shop. So if you like what I do and you don't want to join Patreon, that's totally cool. But you still want to support me, you can buy something from my SD shop. So I sell these prints. The prints look just like this thing that I had here. This is one of these prints in real life. You know, they're pretty big, 11 by 17, and they've got I use coffee to stain them, so they have this sort of old leathery kind of look to them, and the texture actually kind of feels like leather because I put this sealer on it and stuff. So anyway, that's what these things are. You know, most of these are like Lovecraft characters, stuff like that. And then I do actually have my own comics down here too. I self-publish comics. Speaking of comics, this is, if you like my artwork, this is my DeviantArt website. I've been putting a lot of comics up here recently, but I also do other things, you know, fan art, shit like that. There's something that I did recently, this sort of ninja with chainsaw arms. This is just, actually I drew this in 2015, believe it or not, and it's just been sitting around in a sketchbook, so I finally got around to like coloring that. I know that a ninja with chainsaw arms would not be very stealthy, but what are you gonna do? Anyway, so if you like what I do, here's another thing. Here's another earlier one. This is from 2012. It's like a, you know, zombie-looking thing, right? Here's another one, zombie cat. I draw lots of zombies. You know, so anyway, if you like my artwork and you want to see more, please follow me. You know, you can check me out on DeviantArt and follow me around. And I put my webcomic up here. And if you want to read the rest of my webcomic, I actually have one at hawanja.com. So this is my main webcomic featuring my character called Hawanja. And he's basically this ninja guy that goes around and fights people. You know, lots of violence and stuff like that. Ninjas and swords and, you know, people getting kicked in the face and that kind of thing. You know, it's super violent. And then I also have another one called Dirty Kitchen Comics, which is more of a web comics kind of thing. You know, this is mainly like, yeah, more of like a web comic, single page sort of thing like that. And I update this probably about once a week or so, something like that. You know, I got a pretty decent selection of these guys there at this point. So yeah, if you want to see if you like what I do and you want to see more, please check me out on all those places. And I think that's pretty much it. Thank you all for joining. We actually did get a couple of viewers this time, which is actually kind of nice. Thanks, Raph, for coming by. And everybody, please go out there and vote. Vote, 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 vote. We will do another one of these next week. Most likely on Saturday. If not Saturday of this week, then it'll be Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. But I will put the stream up 24 hours in advance so you guys can see it. Anyway, thank you all so much. I gotta get out of here because it's 11 o'clock and I am tired as hell. So, adios, everybody.